starting off then, you're back in indoor action, and it's going to be a pretty crazy, busy indoor season with both the European and World Indoors. Firstly, how's the training all going, and how are you feeling generally?
Yeah, it's been good. I've opened up my indoor season already. So before coming out here to Poch, I did a 3,000 meter race, which was kind of just a test to see where I was for this time of year going into our camp. And that probably went better than I probably thought it was or hoped it was going to go. But yeah, I've had a good few weeks here. It's been trying not to like do too much because I'm in a good place. So it's just making sure that I do enough to feel like I'm ready to race when I get back. But you never really feel like you're ready to go and run a 15 because it's a big jump forward. But I think in Boston, a week tomorrow or a week on Sunday is when I'll be first racing my proper one, which I'm sure I will be ready for when it comes.
So, has training given you an idea of where you are both mentally and physically? And I guess the obvious question there is kind of how are you feeling generally?
Yeah, the main thing for me is that I just want to get back racing. Having like had my season cut short at like the highest point of the season was obviously like disappointing, and I think it's made me realize that if I have the chance to go to champs, that's what I need to take every opportunity, which I'm trying to do that this indoor season. Um, so yeah, that's what these next couple of months for me is about getting back on a British team and going to a championship and trying to see what I can do. And it's tough because it is indoors, which always comes at a funny time of the year. We go from having done like bigger volume, like longer sessions, like winter work, to all of a sudden having a few weeks to get ready to race as well as you can on the track. So I don't really know is like quite exactly where I am. I'll find that out pretty soon, and yeah, I'm hoping it's not just a stepping stone for outdoors, which it normally is for me, but it's something that I can actually have a good season in its own right this time around.
And obviously, I mean, I know you chatted to both you and Jason about this and other people of how much it means to you to kind of be back, not just from what happened in 2023, but obviously the tear in 2024, a week before the
Mm-hmm.
British champs. How much does it mean for you to be back right now in what could be a pretty spectacular year?
Yeah, it's good. It's the thing is like, if I spoke to you about the situation I'd have been in this time last year, I'd have said probably the same as I am now, where I feel like everything's like turned over a new leaf, and I feel like I'm ready to go again. And it's kind of given me a bit more awareness that I needed to look after my body even more than I thought I did, um, which I feel like I've done what I needed to do to try and get on top of that, and that's what I'm hopefully looking forward to this year is that I've got myself now in a position where if I do get problems, which is going to happen at the age of 30 and the nature of pushing your body as far as we do, I probably will get, well, I won't probably, I will get problems at points, but it's making sure that they're not these big injuries that I have been having. So I'm excited kind of to go into the year. I live 15 minutes from an indoor track now compared to about an hour and a half it was on a average day before. So going into like this indoor season, there's a few things that I'm looking forward to because I'll get to train indoor track more, and I'm just hoping that yeah, I can just get back race as much as possible and not put too much pressure on the races I have, because I think the point over the past couple of years I've raced so little that it doesn't really matter the expectation from anyone else anymore. It's just for myself getting back, building my confidence in what I can hopefully do.
How do you reflect on the last couple of years? Because obviously some of the most testing ones of your life,
Yeah,
and that's both a mental and physical stuff. I mean, when you look back, has that helped you in terms of the mental strength of where you are now? And do you feel you are mentally stronger now than even perhaps when you got the world when you got the world title in Oregon?
yeah. Uh, I wouldn't say it's like, I'd say I've been mentally strong probably throughout my career, but I haven't been tested to show how resilient I am with it. And the tough bit was is that 2023 was always, I felt like a test for 2024. So it was like, right, well, didn't go to Budapest and I didn't have a season that year, but that was just a test of how much I was made of going into an Olympic year, and everything was going to come round and be as good as it could be, and it would all be worthwhile. So to then hit my 2024 season off of a good few months at the start of the year, I raced all right in June time. So then to not end up one being able to go to trials and run in the 1500, that was one thing, and I thought, right, that's my worst thing that's going to happen this season. And then great, I still get to go for the 800 and see what I can do there. But then to go into within a week of the Olympic Games just felt cruel. Like in kind of the grand scheme of the years that I'd had. That's what I found tough, was that it almost felt like no one deserves anything bad, but I felt like I'd done everything I could have to stop something like that happening, and I felt as though um, I'd almost like served my time. So that was the probably like the biggest low point in my career, and there's not really much apart from it was either like I wanted to carry on because I felt like there was more to prove, or I was going to be so crushed by it I didn't want to anymore. And I'm glad that I feel like there are a few more years left in me.
I mean, what is the biggest thing? And I'm aware you've alluded to a bit of this before, but what is the biggest thing that you learn over a period like that? Because you are, and I'm aware that you train with Tom and the other guys, and you've got a really good group there as well. But sometimes you are alone and you are training,
Mm-hmm.
and to get that mental resilience inside you is a big thing. I mean, what are the biggest things that you've actually learned?
So that's part of moving to Manchester, is that I've had to do a lot more on my own than I have done in the past. Like I had a good group in Teddington the last few years that I don't have anymore. Like I have to do a lot of training on my own. I think the thing I've learned from it is like at any point of the year, your people are in different places. So you train like with people that might be fitter at different points of the year. You might train with people that come back from injuries. You'll come back from injuries, but it's all about just sticking on your own path and comparing yourself to what you were the previous week. Um, yeah, I think for me, it's been a realization that there isn't just one way to get to the same point. I got myself in very good shape last year and even in 2023, and that was off of not much training, but there's a lot of stuff you can do to get to that. Like if that's cross training hard, if that's cutting back mileage and prioritizing other things, there's not literally one formula that will get you to it. And I did an event last year, and Brendan Foster was there, and he said that like how am I getting on and stuff, and I like said, oh, compared to like last year and stuff, like I feel like I'm still doing okay, and he's like, oh, like just throw away like all of the old training logs from the previous years, because like there's no point in comparing it one to another, because every single year is different circumstances, but it doesn't mean that you don't get to the same point or further, which I think has got to be my mantra still going forward in my career, is that if I can't keep pushing to the same red line that I have been able to in the past because my body won't let me, then there's other ways that I've got to be able to try and find that same outcome, which I'm pretty confident that I can.
And when you've had people like Brendan and obviously what he's done and the influence he's had in the sport actually, say that to you, how much did that mean to you at the time to get that kind of wisdom from someone who has done that much?
Yes, it's big when you haven't been through anything like that yourself. So at that point, I'd had my one big injury at the start of 2023 where I hurt my foot and I was in a boot. So that was like in my head probably all that was going to go wrong that year, which like little did I know there was a lot more to come. But you need people who have been through it and you haven't had that experience to tell you what to do, because every year previously I'd been able to compare the progression to what I'd been doing previous years, and then you win something like Worlds and then you could become obsessed with what you did to get to that peak. But it doesn't mean that stuff couldn't have gone better even in that year, or stuff could have gone worse and I would still have had that outcome or better. I think it's easy to like I'm very good at not comparing myself to others. I feel like that's like a bit of a super strength, because you come away with someone like this, for example, and you could see people doing amazing sessions, but in my head it doesn't make any difference to me. It's like I just focus on what I'm doing, but then the other side of that comparison is against yourself. So it'd be so easy to be like, well, this time last year I was running these splits for these sessions, and there's just no context to it at all. There's no context as to where you started your winter, like how much miles you've got to this point, whether you're tired coming here. Like a lot of people get ill, get injured, so it's just about making sure you stay present and kind of follow your own path at every point of the year, because it's just so different each time.
Yes, champion's mindset, that to be honest. That really is. I mean, what do you make of I'm aware you never kind of like to talk about kind of individual people, but what have you made of the middle distance kind of landscape in the past couple of years when you have been kind of going through a rocky period? Do you think it's changed much since you got that world title back in
Yeah,
Oregon, or?
yeah, it's probably like collectively moved on. So I feel as though like in probably every event, and especially in the 800 in particular and the 1500, it's not just one or two people pushing forward with the times, that everybody's moving on and running a second or two quicker each year, which if I'd have had the chance to race full seasons, I hope that I'd be moving with it. And the comparison of, for example, I won my world title in 3:29, and then to get an Olympic medal, you had to run 3:27, I think it was. It just, everything's progressed, and there's obviously a lot of reasons for that. And like, I can't say whether or not I'd have been able to do it, but I hope I could. At some point, like in both the 8 and 15, I'm sure in the next 5 years, the world records will go. But that's just the nature of all sport. It has to keep progressing and developing. And the only thing you can do is believe that you can rise to it and keep moving with it as well, which keeps you on your toes. But I think it's only a good thing. It'd be nice if people realise that what they're watching is the best athletes, well, like, and the fastest times that have ever been. It's just a good thing for the sport, and will help sell it if they know that they're potentially watching world record attempts and stuff like that when the season gets underway.
Well, I guess that kind of goes on to the Keely event in a minute, and I'll mention that in a sec. But firstly, kind of where are you with the distances at the minute? The 8, the 15. Obviously, you did the 3 in Glasgow recently. What's kind of the big aim with the season kind of with them?
So 1500 is, especially for this time of year, that's what I'm going to be focusing on. The demands of the 800 is very tough, and that's what I struggled with in the summer. Getting ready for Paris was just becoming a 141, 142 runner rather than a 143, 144 runner, which I have been in that previous years. That got a lot for my body. So I feel like if I tried to do that in January time, that I just wouldn't be able to cope with it at all. So it's always going to be the 15 for me. The 3K is a test for me. It's not something I'm good at necessarily, and something that I would think I can be super competitive in. So it would always be going between the two distances and going for 1500, and the same goes for outdoors. But I'd still love to be able to try and run a quick 800. It's just I need to be a lot more careful about how I get to that point now, just because it's a lot more taxing on my body than it used to be, and especially having had like longer periods out each year, it just becomes a lot more demanding to get up to those speeds. So I need to be aware of that. But yeah, for me, like the K is always a great opportunity to kind of use my strengths, I think, to see what I can do over that distance. Because I would say I'm an 800 and 1500 meter runner generally. So the case, it's nicely in the middle of that, and you can hopefully get good outcomes from it.
And like, what's the kind of, without giving any kind of trade secrets away, what's the kind of training that you've been doing kind of in Flag and South Africa? I know you could have obviously mentioned a bit about that on your YouTube thing, and I saw Sirius Mag posted a bit of a clip on it, and the
Yeah.
comments, people just going, "This is crazy training." What kind of training have you been doing, you know, to get to this point?
So nothing special at all. That's probably my main ethos with it. Is like it wouldn't look great on paper. A lot of stuff I do. I've not gone straight into just all track stuff. Like there's only been probably one a week for the past 6 weeks maybe, and then we've still been doing quite a lot of hills, and that'll probably step up a little bit closer towards trials, and getting hopefully after that potentially a champs. So yeah, it's just again, it's like not going too deep into getting ready, because we go from, like I said, we go from like doing winter stuff, so like longer tempos, like longer hills, more mileage, like longer long runs, and all of a sudden we come out here and you're expected to just transform into this like track athlete that you haven't seen for me for 7 months. I haven't raced on the track, so it's just about kind of building my way into the season and realizing that the demands aren't the same as I had in the summer getting ready for Paris. So I can kind of not compare myself too much to that. And I'm hoping that Boston is like a good idea of where I am and how much more work I need to do. But I look forward to getting away from like the kind of like time trialing, and I look forward to the champs more and being able to actually get back racing, because that's what I enjoy. And I hope that that's where my strengths are as well.
And you got Boston, and then you got the Keely Classic event, and you're going for the British 1,000 meter record, which you had, and then Charlie got
Yeah.
it, so you kind of want it back. I mean,
Yeah.
2:17.2, I think it is. Are you fairly confident you can get that based on the kind of training that you've been doing?
I hope so. I saw Charlie out here actually, and he's in like a coaching role, and we were saying, I was like, it's mad that when that was ran, that was now, I think it was, must be nearly like 5 years ago or so, 4 or 5 years ago, and I think there's like probably a lot of people that could give that a good go, and if it was to compare to my outdoor PB, there's like a big gap between it, but indoors is just a bit of a different breed. But I hope that I could get under it. I think when I ran 2:17 before, I was a bit disappointed with how I ran. And the main thing for me is just that I go there and I try and win the race, because I think it's going to be quite a strong domestic British field. So it'd be great to, for starters, win it. And then I feel like if you are going in the field that deep to be able to win it, you have to be running probably a British record at that pace. So yeah, it's exciting. It's a distance that we don't get to do much. So I feel as though if you get the chance to race it, you really have to make the most of it, because it's like, when do I know when I'm next going to run a K?
And the event generally, you've got Keely going for the world indoor 800-meter record. You've got yourself going for the British 1,000-meter record. Georgia going for the indoor 15 record as well. You know, Molly in the pole vault could easily get another British record potentially. I mean, you could have that event, you know, 5 or 6 British records and a world record potentially. I mean, what does that event
Yeah.
do? The fact that it's branded under Keely's name and what she's done in Paris, obviously spotty as well. She's almost transcended the sport. How big of an
Yeah,
event
yeah.
do you think it can be for British athletics generally?
Yeah, I think we're so used to having like a big indoor tour meet. So either like the Glasgow or the Birmingham meets. We had Worlds last year. So you need something, I think, that's going to be an event that, if people are saying, what am I going to buy tickets for and what am I going to go to, there needs to be something that stands out. And I feel like that's doing that this year. Riding off the back of how good Keely was in the summer, I think it's only right that she's got her own meet named after her, because she's the one that's going to be bringing people from outside the sport into it. I mean, like, winning sports personality against like all the other British sports people shows that she's obviously doing so well herself, but also that the sport is probably doing well with her. Um, it's great that we're getting the chance to race. Probably for a lot of people like Keely, I think it might not be. She might not have raced, I don't think, since Paris. So it's like a big deal that you can then see her racing in our own country and our own meet. So I'm hoping that it's going to be something a bit different and really get like the buzz from Olympics, because it's easy for it to die down a little bit. People could watch all the athletics in Paris and then not really follow it after that. So you need events like this to keep people interested and keep people interacting more than anything with the athletes, I think.
I was about to say, for I guess for any sport, athletics, swimming, cycling, it is the age-old question. The Olympics is the pinnacle. The world champs is obviously second to that. European champs, commies are kind of up there for British athletes as well. But how, I mean, for you, how significant is it to get people to watch it kind of between that? And what kind of things would you, I wouldn't say recommend, but what kind of things would you say which is in your mind in terms of getting people to follow athletes' journeys outside of
Mm-hmm.
just those major champs?
Yeah, I think that I would hate for athletics to be considered just an Olympic sport, which I'm sure a lot of people would label it as. I think if on BBC, for example, if it ever got relegated to just Olympic sport rather than having its own tab, I think that's a sign of the sport not holding its own, really. I think indoors is like the perfect chance to be able to play around with how the format evolves. It's like a nice, like, closed indoor arena. Like, people don't have to worry about being sat miles away from the action. It's pretty intense. You can play around with the like lights displays, the music. You can make it as fun and action packed as possible. Like, it could be, well, it is, I think, the same arena, isn't it, as the Gladiators would be, but it should have that sort of fun feel to it, I think. Um, but yeah, my thing would be is that if athletes are doing a good enough job at probably keeping momentum from it going, it is our responsibility a little bit. Like, Keely does like a great job with keeping our own platform going on social media. Like, I try my best to do as much as possible, and I feel like more athletes are doing that now, because you realise that great during the Olympic Games, there's every broadcaster in the world is following the sport and doing their bit to put you on pedestals. But beyond that, it's your own responsibility to give that platform. And these sort of meets are a chance for people to watch you race, but you've got to give them a reason to still care about you once you're off the track as well, because that's just the nature of how sport is these days.
And I guess that goes into your YouTube channel generally. I know Josh obviously does a lot of the production and the camera work behind the scenes, but the most recent episode, of course, with you reflecting on kind of getting that tear just before the Olympics and actually opening up and being vulnerable to camera about that and doing that in a very authentic way. I think a lot of fans and commentators, when they, you know, when they watched it, actually said, "Okay, wow, this is really cool to see because it's very different, and you don't see that." I mean, for you, how easy or hard of a decision was it to create that YouTube channel, and how's the, I guess, the feedback been so far? Because it's pretty ace.
Yeah, it's been all right. I did it after Worlds. That I felt almost like a responsibility to like give people a bit more. I think because I had a good summer, and I haven't been that great, to be fair, over the years at being like constantly posting on social media, and a lot of it I felt as though like going through Instagram or Twitter, you're just on a keyboard and there's no real personality coming through it. It feels a little bit more forced and disgenuine, I guess. And then my idea was for it to be a YouTube where it's not even just about the training, it's more about the stuff around it, where you can give yourself and the people you're hanging out with like a bit more of an insight into what your personality is actually like and how you are as people, rather than just these robots potentially that are seen racing on the track. My thing was that I didn't want it to just be like all the good bits. And funny enough, since I've started it, there's been a lot more bad bits than good. And I did my last video just because I hadn't posted for a long time on it, and I felt as though I'd never really addressed what happened in the summer. A lot of that was like my own choice because I was a bit reluctant to do so because I felt so like disappointed by it. So it was like I almost just was like, well, just dead bury this and move on from it. But then I didn't really feel as though that was a nice way to just come back into a video on training, being like, oh, last time you saw me, I was getting ready. I think it was to race at Pre, and my season had just started, and then all of a sudden I'm back training again, where there actually had been a lot of gaps to be filled in. And we are people, so it's not like you don't feel emotions to anything. It like hits you obviously very hard because it's your whole life is invested into this, and sometimes it's like important to show that, I guess. And yeah, for me, there's been more probably moments where I've had to speak about bad things that have happened and good things, and it's all part of the journey that at some point I hope if I keep doing it, there'll be good access to when stuff does go really well.
And two final points for me. The first one on YouTube itself. I mean, how important as a medium to, I guess, get the next generation involved in that? You get a social media clip from that YouTube channel when you're hitting that kind of Gen Z, Gen X, millennial.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many
yeah.
now kind of audiences, but it gets new fans, not necessarily just athletics fans, but sports fans generally into that, and they see your journey, and then they kind of watch the meets.
Yeah, I think part of it is that it feels like very global. So when you go on Instagram, for example, I think a lot of the demographic I would probably hit is Brits and like potentially Europeans and stuff like that. Whereas I feel like you get a lot more of a global audience within YouTube. Um, you can digest a lot more about somebody through like a 15-minute video rather than just a 10-second one, or even just like a still photo with some text. I feel as though we can portray ourselves how we would like to be seen a bit more, which is like hopefully obviously authentic and just show that there is more to you. Like that's what I don't like, is that I think a lot of people would assume that runners especially are pretty boring individuals, that we live simple lives and we don't have much going on. But a lot of people have great personalities, a lot of stuff going on the side that they probably don't shout about enough. And I hope that going forward, especially with like the new generation below me, which I'm towards the older end, so if I feel like that's the case, these younger athletes know how to do it naturally a bit better than us. So I'm sure that you'll see a lot more access, and I hope it's what the fans want, and I hope it's what people need to be able to kind of find the sport and get into it without having to just watch a race. You can watch a person and follow a personality before you actually become a fan of the sport.
And the final point from me, and I'm aware you're pretty good at getting on with a ton of stuff, but I mean,
So
that kind of
good.
goes into this year. Kind of what, I mean, it's a very corny question, but what are your ultimate goals and ambitions for this year? I guess kind of both in terms of results, but actually then, as you kind of alluded to there, kind of getting that next generation involved in it as well.
Yeah, it's like I come to the point now where I know I'm in like the last few years of my career, my racing, and I've always said that I wanted to keep doing it as long as I was running at a level that I felt like was where I should be. And that's kind of the most disappointing thing, is that I feel like I have been operating or able to operate at that level, but I just haven't been able to reach the point where I can show that, which is like so disappointing. If I'd have been racing, I'd have been really below where I felt like I should be. I probably wouldn't have carried on beyond Paris. So for me, it's just about like taking it a race at a time at the moment and just building myself back to where I know I can be. And that obviously hopefully will culminate in September at a World Champs. But I would have said that every other year. So I've got to get through each race and stay healthy between, because there's no point in being an injured athlete that was very fit, which I've had a couple of years. You can't prove anything, or you don't get any medals for that. So that's the main thing. And yeah, I think I have to think about what I do beyond the sport, and I'd love to have some involvement within it. I don't know in what capacity, but it'd be a shame, I think, to have spent this long now, operating at this sort of level and not go on to try and pass on my own thoughts about what I feel like a young athlete could be doing or what I feel like the sport could do to grow. It'd be great to be able to do that. I've realised now that a lot of the plans that get put in place will completely be beyond when I'm competing, but it'd be great to kind of be involved in the behind the scenes work at some point in that. In what capacity, I don't know, but yeah, I don't think I'll disappear from the sport completely. It'd be nice to be involved in somehow.